we have such a respectful audience today.
Not over yet.
I was afraid somebody would say that. But just a reminder that according to protocol, both from our health unit and also from the Legion, it is possible that when you're seated at a table, you do not have to wear your mask. However, when you move around, either to go to the bar, which will be open in a few minutes, or if you go to the washroom, which is out there in the hall, then you do have to wear your mask. And we hope all this ends fairly soon. We want to thank you folks for coming out, those here in our audience today at the Canadian Legion Branch 76, here overlooking beautiful Lake Ramsey, and of course those who may be viewing on Sudbury.com. Elections are always exciting, and whether they be federal, provincial, or municipal. That's the federal body. Who are we going to be sending to Ottawa? Who's going to be sitting in the House of Commons? Who's going to be on Parliament Hill? Well, we're going to find that out in just a few weeks' time. We want to thank the Legion for hosting us here. I've been a long-term member at the Legion here, which we feel is probably the most attractive Legion in all of Canada, and certainly one of the most advantageous sites overlooking Lake Ramsey in the city of Greater Sudbury. And we're happy that our candidates have come out as well too, and congratulating them for taking part in this endeavor. We are going to introduce our candidates. I guess they're going to remain standing here, which is good, that we have an opportunity to take a good look at them. And this is really the reason that CARP, the Canadian Association of Retired Persons, and Friendly to Seniors in Sudbury, both advocacy groups with probably a combined membership throughout the Sudbury area of around 2,000. And Sudbury, as you know, percentage-wise, has more seniors than any other community in Canada, perhaps, except for LA Lake. And, you know, we're proud of that, but we're also concerned because there are many questions that seniors have about many important issues, primarily related to health. At your table, you will find some pens, some CARP pens, and some pieces of paper, and we invite you to copy down or to write down some questions, and we'll be presenting them to our moderator, whom we're going to introduce in just a very few moments' time. First of all, we're going to introduce, and I'm not going to wear this mask. This is my wife's mask, and you can hardly hear anything through it, which is why I gave it to her. Oh, see, you're not going to throw things now? No, actually, this is, I wore this because it sort of matched. But anyway, let's put on the close-up glasses and do our introduction. And we're going to start with, I guess we'll start with Sudbury. That's okay. Okay. As you know, our Sudbury Liberal MP, Paul Lefebvre, announced that he would not seek re-election this time around. So in July, Vivian Lapointe won the Liberal nomination for Sudbury. Ms. Lapointe is currently Executive Director of Community Living Greater Sudbury and has held various senior bureaucratic posts in government and senior posts in the public sector. Our Conservative nominated candidate, Dr. Ian Symington, is a married father of 3 children who grew up in Coppercliff, one of our favorite Sudbury communities, a family physician for some 20 years now, sees patients at the Coppercliff Medical Center as well as at Health Sciences North. The New Democrats selected Dr. Nadia Borelli as Sudbury candidate with a PhD. Borelli is a professor of Canadian politics, a constitutional scholar and researcher with Queen's University Institute for Intergovernmental Relations, and a former Laurentian University professor. Political science was one of the programs, as you know, that was axed by Laurentian in the spring. And Dr. David Robinson, who we hope will be with us shortly, is a former PhD economics professor at Laurentian University and a frequent contributor and commenter on issues of importance to Sudbury and Northern Ontario, and representing the Greens. As you can see by because we only had a limited space in our name tags here, we have indicated everybody's parties by initials. L being, of course, in C and N and G. Got that figured out, Jenna? Yeah. Now for Nickel Belt, Mark Gentili is the Liberal incumbent. He was General Sales Manager with Eastlink as a Bachelor of Commerce from Laurentian University. The Conservatives nominated Charles Humphrey, who according to his campaign page works as an advanced care paramedic and a research assistant in pre-hospital medicine with prior experience in post-secondary education and public policy research. The New Democrats have Dr. Adrienne Chenier as their candidate, who was acclaimed to the position in July. She's described as an occupational health and safety specialist with CUPE and a mother of two who lives in Hannah. Her doctorate is in biomolecular science. No, I don't know how many candidates across the country have 3 or 4 people with doctorates. This is incredible. We have a well-educated group here. The Green Party nominated Craig Gravel as their candidate. He was raised in various communities around Greater Sudbury and Mississauga, has a diploma and certificate from Humber College in Toronto, has been cooking in restaurants for 5 years, including 3 here in Greater Sudbury. Now, all candidates will have 2 minutes for opening comments following a question and answer period. That will follow the opening comments. We're going to give them 2 minutes, and we have our special timer here, which is programmed for exactly 2 minutes. But when it goes off, there's no mistaking it going off. And then we're going to He'll be collecting the questions and presenting them to our moderator, which it's time to introduce Mark Gentili, who's the community editor for Sudbury.com. And we want to thank Sudbury.com for doing this live streaming of our meeting today, and also will be recorded for viewing later on. And now, just not the opportunity for older folks to take a look at this, because all citizens we expect of voting age, to take interest in this election, which is most important. Seems to be, despite the fact that it's taking place in the dog days of summer, seems to be garnering quite a bit of attention. So we hope you're going to enjoy and learn from today's presentation and event. And happy to introduce to you a round of applause for Mark Gentili. Mark.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for having me here today, and thanks for having us here today. Glad to see so many faces ready to learn a little something about this election. So as John said, we're going to start with 2 minutes opening statements from each of the candidates. We're going to start Nickel Belt and work our way in. Then we'll move to Sudbury and work our way in. So from Vivian in towards the podium, and from Mark Gentili in towards the podium. If the candidates want to take their seats. I think we begin. As a reminder, if you have not, we are still under COVID protocols, so if you have not signed in at the table at the entrance for contact tracing, if you could provide your contact info, that would be most helpful for the organizers here. And you can take your masks off. Yes, if you're sitting at the table, you are allowed to take your masks off under the public health rules, but if you feel more comfortable keeping them on, please feel free to do so. So, for opening statements, starting with Nickel Belt and the Liberal candidate, Mark Gentili. Sorry. I'm like Phil Donahue.
Remember Phil Donahue?
Thank you.
I will yell at 1 minute.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, John, and thank you, everyone, for being here. Merci beaucoup de tout le monde d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je m'appelle Mark Gentili, le candidat libéral pour Nickel Belt. I've been the NP for over 6 years now, and seniors has been a big part of the job that I've done all across the 48 communities all across Nickel Belt. either from seniors clubs to CARP. I've been involved with CARP on several occasions. The Greater Sudbury Advisory Council, there's over 110 organizations that are getting together on a monthly basis to look at seniors issues. I've had the opportunity to participate at several times, and the group is growing, from helping seniors from home to food banks, looking at community organizations. And it's really, really a positive aspect that the City of Greater Sudbury has provided the leadership to make sure that those organizations come together.
1 minute.
That's really quick. So I, and the House of Commons passed a motion to have the House of Commons for the first time ever declare a national seniors strategy that created a ministry for seniors. Now we have a dedicated minister responsible for seniors. We've looked at how to, and the three elements of the senior strategy was housing, was looking at income, because we have still a lot of seniors living in poverty, and that's what we made it a priority to look at increasing the GIS, and now we're looking at the commitment moving forward to increasing the GIS again. When we look at organizations and New Horizons funding and a lot of the groups, I'm really, really pleased to be able to have worked with a lot of you, a lot of the organizations from all across Nickel Belt, and I'm really looking forward to continuing that work. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Miigwech.
Yes, please.
Well, I want to thank everybody. This is a big day for me. This is my first ever political debate, so forgive me if I'm a little bit nervous here. So, as many of you know, I'm an advanced care paramedic. I've served this city for 6 years. This has put me in a very unique position to see the challenges that seniors in our community are facing. The experiences of seniors who are struggling to look after loved ones, who are unable to access humane, well-funded long-term care, and who are struggling to keep up with costs amidst rising inflation, is something that is very near and dear to my heart, as I'm the one who has to deal with the problems. EMS, although rung in our social call I do is some systemic failure that has allowed somebody to fall to that point where their only option is to call 911. And so I am uniquely positioned as a candidate to speak to and represent the interests of seniors in this community by being the only one here who can speak with real authority from frontline experience. This election fundamentally is about affordability. We have seen rising inflation, which those of you who live on fixed incomes know saps the purchasing power of your dollar, rendering it worth less and less day by day. My Liberal and NDP opponents will present a number of solutions that involve increasing government expenditure by giving direct support. That direct support will appear to solve the issue while furthering the fiscal... Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
There's no hand on the scale here.
Bonjour, I'm Andréane Chénier, the NDP candidate for Nickel Belt. Thank you to CARP and to Friendly for Seniors for the advocacy work you've been doing for the community. New Democrats are partners, helping deal with issues in long-term care homes, decent senior housing, and dietary supports. I acknowledge the Robinson-Huron Treaty and the traditional territories of the Atikamekw Anishinaabeg and the Wanapete First Nation, and give thanks for the ability to gather here today. I've been a representative for most of my life. I've made a career out of helping people who need my help. I've experience in healthcare, in the public sector, and in the research world. Je suis fièrement franco-ontarienne, et l'avenir de la francophonie dans le nord de l'Ontario me tient à cœur parce que c'est ma réalité et c'est l'avenir de ma famille et de mes enfants. I'm running because I'm tired of decisions that don't make sense to me, that benefit the very few, while the many who've got real problems are left ignored. I want to put my knowledge, my skills, my experience to work for you, from Gogama to Killarney, from Sturgeon Falls to the Valley. You will have my undivided attention because I want to help. Sharing their concerns with me. Over and over, I've heard that we didn't need a federal election at this time. There are so many other things we could be spending tax dollars on, like spending old age security benefits. Promises over the last 6 years, but has failed to deliver on many of them. Billions of tax dollars given over to big businesses whose profits did not trickle down to benefit us. It doesn't have to be this way, though. New Democrats don't have competing interests. Our focus is on you.
Hello, bonjour, ani everyone. I'm grateful to be here today, to have the chance to speak to you all and participate in this event. I want to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today on the lands of the Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and the traditional territories of the Tikwishing and Anishinaabe communities, as well as the Lenape First Nation. My name is Craig Gravel. I am the Canadian Greens candidate representing the riding of Nickel Belt. I'm 24 years old. I've cooked in restaurants for 6 years now, and I am a recent college graduate. September 20th is election day. Voters have a lot on their minds and are looking for change. And are willing to consider voting for a candidate or party they find will bring about that change. I put my name forward to run as a candidate for the Green Party of Canada to provide voters in Nickel Belt with a candidate who supports bold, daring policies that will help us recover from this global pandemic and recession that we are all currently experiencing. Elect me as your next MP representing Nickel Belt, and I will fight for bold policy solutions that address the many inequities and issues that have made life harder for working class families in Nickel Belt. Bold policies like the guaranteed livable income that address income insecurity, while also giving Canadians more choice, dignity, and opportunity. Abolishing tuition and forgiving student debts so that no student graduates with a debt load that puts a drag on their future. Expanding healthcare to include Pharmacare, dental care, so nobody has to worry about affording the medications or dental work they need to live more comfortably. A just transition to...
Thank you, Nickel Belt candidates. Now to the Sudbury candidates, starting with the Liberal candidate, Vivian Lapointe.
I want to thank the speakers who acknowledge the Indigenous territories upon which we are gathered today. Je tiens également à remercier CARP et Friendly to Seniors pour l'occasion de discuter des questions très importantes pour notre communauté. These are matters that pertain to everyone, from seniors to young children. These matters are important to me because it's where I built my career and it's where I grew my family. On me demande souvent pourquoi j'ai décidé de me présenter à ces élections. There are 3 reasons why I'm running. First, my children's future and every child's future. Second, continuing the real good and important work of supporting businesses and people. And third, protecting our environment. My children, Connor and Aaron, have also decided that Sudbury is the place where they will grow their family and their careers. That is a driving and personal motivation for me to help young families. I want to help them realize their dream of owning their first home. I want to help women fully participate in the workplace through affordable childcare. Les questions de champs des aînés sont très importantes pour moi. My mother moved into our home where I cared for her. And caring for my mother taught me the importance of providing not only support to seniors, but dignity. And I look forward to telling you how we're going to do that today in this debate. I support climate change. Sudbury is a leader in this area, and I want to build on that reputation. I want to support local businesses emerge stronger. Thank you.
Just a reminder as well, audience, we are looking for your involvement in this, so we're hoping that you've got paper there in front of you. If you could write down a question for the candidates and bring it up to the front, we'll make sure that that question gets asked on your behalf. As well for the candidates, we would like to stimulate some debate between you all. So if you have questions rather for a candidate of another party, we will move to that portion of the debate following these opening statements, okay? And now for the Conservatives, Dr. Ian Symington.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Good afternoon. Thank you to the organizers, and really thank you to the candidates, because you're stepping forward. It's a really big thing to do, and it's a lot of work. I can tell you that after the first couple of weeks of this. I'm going to shift focus. It is Ian Symington. That's the way you say my name. It's often mispronounced. I have, just from a seniors and retiree point of view, I did a quick search in my office. I was at work today, and I have about 300 patients between the age of 65 to 100. So I've got very close connections and personal connections that I hear from these people. And my big thing that I'm seeing is the stereotypical senior of a frail person who's, you know, can't really look after themselves and is housebound is only one aspect. This is a vast group of people. I have seniors who play hockey, who play pickleball, who play hiking, biking, walking, everything to that nature. I have seniors who run companies. I have professionals who still practice medicine, who still practice law. I have seniors who travel. Obviously, Sudbury's a big snowbird area, so those issues are important to them. I also have seniors who are frail, who are homebound, who are housebound, who are non-ambulatory and can't navigate the community. So I think the reason I mention all these different aspects to the seniors is our Conservative plan is very comprehensive. It was released early in the campaign. It's very detailed with costing, and it addresses multiple facets. And it's called the Conservative Recovery Plan. It's based on 5 pillars. We're talking about
There's not much time there to get your thoughts in.
Hi, I'm Nadia, your NDP candidate. Thank you, CARP and Friendly to Seniors, for the invite, and thank you all for coming today. It's great to be here in person, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation and the discussion that we're about to have today. It's such an honor being here representing the NDP for Sudbury in this election, and to have the opportunity to present our ideas to you. Though we're here a couple of years early, this is an important election and there is lots to talk about. Many of us are still reeling from the impact of the pandemic and worried about the rise of the 4th wave. The pandemic exposed fault lines in our society, which will fall to the next government to address. And I'm eager to talk to you about what we can do federally to improve health and wellness and secure our long-term care system for the future. The rising cost of housing, opportunities for our children and grandchildren, and the world we're passing on to future generations are all key issues I'm looking forward to discussing. Sudbury, like much of our country, was built by labor of hardworking people trying to make a better life for their children. This is a value that my parents held dear and instilled in me. And with their support, their encouragement, and the number of jobs I've worked to try and make ends meet, I became the first person in my family to earn a doctorate. Coming home, congratulated me. But then my mom grabbed a knife, pointed the bushels of tomatoes and said, "Dr. Brelli, it's time to jar those tomatoes if we're to have sauce for the winter." She was planning ahead for the future, and that is something that has always stuck with me. And that is why I'm drawn to the NDP. Not only do they believe that a better future is possible, but they are the party that is truly able to deliver that future to all Canadians. People in Sudbury are ready for better. They are ready to elect a government that will make life more affordable, that will finally deliver universal Pharmacare for all, and ensure that we recover. Thank you.
And Amaretto sounds good. I'm more of a Frangelico guy myself. Okay, so we would like now to move to some debate between the candidates. As you know, this isn't just about talking to you. These candidates have to know their platforms. They have to be able to think on their feet. They have to know the other party's platforms. So this is the way it's going to work. One candidate may ask a question of another candidate. That candidate will have 2 minutes to respond, and then the candidate who asked the question can have 2 minutes to respond. Everyone understand? Everyone's clear? Would anyone like to start? Don't all jump up at once.
I'll go. Thank you. I guess this is for the Liberal candidates on both, so Mark Gentili and Vivian Lapointe. Both of you have talked about that your government is, or a Liberal government, is committed to bold action. But we know from a report that came out a couple of weeks ago that Canada is worse off. Our emissions have gone up since Trudeau has been in power. So can you talk about the failure to deliver on those promises, both the promises made in 2015 and those in 2019? Compare that with the bold.
I'll give it to Vivian Lapointe to stick it within the riding and for the sake of expediency, I think.
So as we witnessed this summer, where we've seen forest fires, droughts, incredible heat waves, we know that our environment is in danger, and there's no denying climate change. Climate change is the greatest long-term threat that faces humanity at this point in time, but it's also our greatest economic opportunity. That's why we have a plan to create jobs, grow the economy, protect our environment, and make communities greener. We've made new investments in public transport to build cleaner communities and create jobs. We've committed to planting 2 billion trees to cut pollutions and again create jobs. We've banned harmful single-use plastic to protect our oceans, and we've invested historic amounts in public transit, $50 million in Sudbury alone. The Liberals have done more on climate change in the past 6 years than any other government on record. The Liberal plan is the most robust. Greenpeace, climate activists have all agreed that our plan is the most aggressive plan, and it will get us further than any other plan for emissions.
Dr. Borelli, would you like to respond?
Thank you, and thank you, Vivian. So I appreciate the bold action you're proposing and your party is proposing. However, the fact remains that emissions have gone up in the last 6 years. Whereas the NDP plan, we are committed. We know that we need climate change now. We can't wait for the Liberals to fulfill their promises. And this is why we will work to reduce carbon emissions. This is why we will invest in green infrastructure. We will discuss with our partners here in Sudbury and across Canada to invest in green infrastructure. Also, we are committed to protecting land and water. We know the Indigenous peoples have been saying for years, water is life. It is time for us to stand up and listen. In our plan, we are committed to sit down and to discuss with Indigenous peoples on how we bring about climate change. So the Liberal plan may seem bold on paper, but we have yet to see them deliver. Whereas the NDP plan, we're here and we will deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Borelli. Dr. André Chenier, the NDP candidate in Sudbury, has a question.
Hi, my question is also for my Liberal colleague. We know that the housing crisis has been a very significant problem for seniors because finding decent, affordable rental units or even finding affordable homes to live in has been problematic. What we do know is that under the Liberal leadership of the last 6 years, house prices have been allowed to skyrocket. How is it that your plan will be fixing this problem that you've allowed to happen?
Mark, and thank you, Ariane, for the question. It's an important question. And I'll also link it a bit with seniors, because I'm going to try and link the debate to seniors itself. But obviously, housing prices all across the country, as indicated earlier, have gone up significantly, especially during the pandemic, with the supply and demand issues, and so there's a lot of issues that are related. But what we have to look at, in 2017, we started a national housing strategy. And that strategy we're continuing to improve now moving forward. I'll give you an example, just there's a few elements here. Coniston received 55 units for affordable housing for seniors. This is a model. CMHC in the past have given dollars to larger centers. I'm part of the Liberal caucus, the rural caucus was chairing across the country. We really pushed hard to ensure that we had a rural strategy. CMHC never provided dollars to small projects. Now we have an opening, we have a system, we have a model now to focus on getting new development for seniors housing and affordable housing. The other aspect that we looked at, which is very important, we also have a strategy specifically for Indigenous communities. I made announcements in West Nipissing, there's been announcements across the north to look at specific housing for Indigenous, and it's really important that we look at that. Obviously, housing has been a provincial jurisdiction in the past, but the federal government has stepped up and now working closely. These projects are now linked with the provinces and also linked with the municipalities.
Thank you, Mr. Surrey. Just a reminder, if you do have a question that you would like asked to the candidate, you just indicate with your hand and I'll run out there Phil Donahue style and grab that piece of paper from you. Now, go next. You have another question? Oh, sorry, I forgot to give you a chance. Pardon me. Dr. Shaney.
Thank you. It's interesting that there are these new announcements that are being proposed, because during the last 6 years, house prices have skyrocketed. And I mean, during the pandemic, to which you made reference to, house prices have increased by 34%, which in large part is due to speculation. And that foreign investment, that speculation on what is honestly an essential need, is a problem, because basically what it ends up doing is it drives residents out of their communities, and it does not allow us to buy homes or allow our children to buy homes in the communities in which we've been raised. And so the NDP platform actually has a plan to stop that foreign speculation by imposing taxes of 20% on foreign investors. We have a plan to build 500,000 new affordable housing units for all levels, not just for purchase, but also for rental and for social housing, which helps us deal with a lot of other issues at the same time, including homelessness, including dealing with mental health problems, including the opioid crisis, including so many other issues. So it is nice to see that there is a plan going forward. My question is, where was this plan for over the last 6 years?
Is there another candidate who would like to ask a question? Yes. Mr. Humphrey.
Yes, again, this is to my colleague here, Mr. Serre. The Liberal government has been in charge of this country for the last 6 years, and what we have seen in the past 2 years and most recently is a dramatic increase in the cost of living, largely driven through inflationary pressures. This is in part due to the pandemic, but also due to a vast increase in debt-financed Liberal spending. The Liberal government's plan at present commits to restoring fiscal balance by 2070, which, to my mind, given the cycles, our electoral cycles, is no plan at all. How, Mr. Serre, can your government claim to be able to continue to finance the social safety net of this country in the context of rising deficits and rising inflation that will not only put pressure on government purse, but on the ability of Canadians to get by on fixed income, such as the seniors here today?
Mr. Surrey.
Thank you very much.
I turned it off.
Thank Thank you very much, and thank you for the question. Very important question that we want to look at. I'll just make a few points from a government perspective. Canada was in a good fiscal position. Our debt to GDP ratio is still the best or second best in the G7. Also, when we look at investments that we needed to make, let's be clear. This pandemic hit worldwide, hit the country, hit the province, hit Northern Ontario really strong. As a federal government, our interests are very, very low. Someone had to take on the burden of supporting families and supporting businesses. The federal government stepped up. 80% of all the funding that was provided in Ontario came from the federal government to provide support for you as individuals, for businesses. The wage subsidy for businesses has been the largest support to businesses ever done by the federal government. And that permitted people to stay employed, to make sure that we went through this pandemic. So when we look at investments that are being made into people, and we just have to look at across the border to see the challenges that the other countries have had. So I will make no excuses for providing the support. And I've heard it from people all across Nickel Belt. They wanted the support, they need that support. It's very fast.
Mr. Humphrey, would you care to respond?
Yes, I'd love to. Well, I have to thank you, Mr. Serre, for acknowledging the fiscal position. That was very good. Job the previous Conservative government did in putting Canada in the fiscal position they were in prior to the Trudeau government coming in. We've seen as long as they've been in power. Mr. Serre and the Liberal government does like to emphasize the fact that they spend money. And yes, I will not disagree that they are excellent at spending money. The question, as those of us who have to make our penny go further, is the money getting results, though? And that, I think, is open to question here. There have been reports from the Canadian Public Service that the government has not been looking to accomplish things and then trying to find the money to pay for it, but asking the public service, how can we spend this money? Because the important thing with this Liberal government has been to be seen to be doing the right thing, to be seen to be spending money, with no regard for efficiency or for the long-term consequences for the economic viability of this country. As a young Canadian with 2 young children looking to their future, this causes me great concern, and that's why I'm here representing myself, because I think that's a discussion that needs to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Humphrey. Anyone else have a question? Mr. Gorell.
This question's for the incumbent, Nickel Belt. Recently, in the spring, there was a Liberal Party convention where 77% of delegates of the Liberal for this election. Incumbent, what are his views on the universal basic? What does he think about voters who want to see a basic income and might switch parties because other parties do support a basic income, unlike Trudeau, who says he lacks enthusiasm in the program?
Thank you, Mr. Gravel. Mr. Serre, your response?
Thank you very much, and again, very, very, very good question. When we look at universal basic income for Canadians, and when we look at the pandemic, and this is really highlighted, and I know all of us here at the table want to make sure that we support our families, we support children, we support people with vulnerable jobs. And when we look at the CERB, what was put in place, and we worked with all parties in the House of Commons to make sure that the CERB was in place to support people that were losing their jobs. The CERB now has been transferred over to EI, and now there is an element here of that we're going to learn how this money has helped individuals, has helped families. So when we look at the next moving forward, this is something important that we have to work with the provinces. There is ODSP, there is Ontario Works, there is CPP, there is a gamut of income support programs that need to be changed. I am part of the Liberal caucus that has been advocating to get basic income when we look at the structure of it, and it's something that we have to look at, but we have to work with the provinces to make sure that we have some level of support to people that need it the most. Example, the GIS for seniors, we've increased it by $1,700, one of the first things we did in 2017, and that 1 million seniors received that income supplement. 70% were women, and now in our platform we're looking at increasing the GIS once again. And the OIS, it's the first time since 1973 there's a permanent increase to the OIS, and that's going to help individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Saray. Would you like to respond, Mr. Garreau?
So as you just heard there, Mark Saray, the incumbent, was speaking about a bunch of different income support programs. A universal basic income guaranteed livable income program is a program that fills the cracks. There are a lot of programs, CERBS, EWS, CESB, which is the student benefit, which did help people, especially through the pandemic and this recession. However, it did leave people out. I want to leave people with this. When 77% of party delegates support a policy and your party leader doesn't, perhaps it's a good time to look for another party to support. Thank you very much.
I'm coming, sorry.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm trying to gather questions here. I believe Vivian Lapointe, the Liberal candidate in Sudbury, has the next question. Really, Emily filled on you here.
My question is for the NDP candidate of Sudbury. The Liberal government knew that during COVID it needed to take action or our country would have been faced with devastating job losses. We lost 450,000 jobs during COVID. We knew that business closures, that's what we were facing, as well as bankruptcies. Wage subsidies kept businesses alive during the pandemic. Economists and World Banks agree. The cost to our economy would have been far higher if we hadn't acted. Business owners tell us that the wage subsidy is the best public policy ever for businesses. We tabled a $400 billion budget in the spring of 2021. The NDP called it an austere budget. So my question to the NDP candidate is, what response would the NDP have given for COVID while remaining fiscally responsible?
Thank you, Ms. Lapointe. Ms. Burrell, your response?
Vivian, thank you for the question, and I want to remind everyone in the room here, yes, the Liberals have brought in the CERB, but it was the NDP that pushed the Liberals to extend the CERB. It was the NDP that ensured that Trudeau did more to address what you needed during the pandemic. It was the NDP under the leadership of Jagmeet Singh that ensured that the Liberals did more in this minority government. So when Trudeau was talking about calling an election because people want action now, because people want to get out of the pandemic now and want to recover now, it's not about Trudeau wanting to do more. The NDP ensured that Trudeau was doing more. This is a power grab. This is Trudeau wanting a majority government to give him the ability to do less. So yes, the budget, but let's not forget that the NDP is the one that pushed and ensured Justin Trudeau did and served the people. And the NDP, that's what we do. We work for you to ensure that we invest in you. Thank you.
Would you like to respond, Mr. Lapointe?
The programs put in place during COVID, as I said before, helped keep businesses running and helped keep people in their homes. We were facing personal bankruptcies, business bankruptcies. The wage subsidies as well as the rent subsidies for businesses, were very important. And our recovery is now well poised, where we will see an economic boost. We have a target to create 1 million jobs this year. Sudbury and Canada is well poised now, and that is because of the actions that the Liberal government took.
Thank you. All of the candidates have had one chance to ask one question, except Dr. Symington. Did you want to ask a question of one of the other candidates, Dr. Symington, before we move on?
I would ask Ms. Lapointe. I think a lot of people are getting jaded by politics. I think what's happening south of the border is very, very discouraging for a lot of us, including myself. Given the fact that our Prime Minister has had multiple ethical lapses and has had severe problems controlling his image and following the rules, I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are lining up with that type of leadership.
It's an interesting question coming from the Conservative candidate when we've seen O'Toole not insist that his own volunteers be vaccinated, and just earlier this week said that he would not make his health minister be vaccinated. He would not require his health minister to be vaccinated. The safety
identified beforehand rather than looking through email trails to find out who has lobbied the government to get them in such positions. So it's close to my heart. I really do want to see more ethics, and I'm sure everyone at this table is extremely ethical and is in this for the right reasons. But again, I think that the leadership currently has failed somewhat in that regard.
I'm going to move on to and indicate that, or if maybe a CARP volunteer could bring that question up to me. Okay, we'll get through as many of these questions as we can. Okay. I'm not sure who this question is directed to, Dot.
It's directed actually to all the candidates.
Okay, we won't have time to have them all answer those, so would you like to specify a candidate for a riding?
Could they just say yes or no if they supported?
To your. This has a bit of a preamble to it. The Health Coalition has issued a. This is a nonpartisan campaign phasing out of all nonprofit long-term care homes in Ontario. COVID-19 demonstrated that for-profit long-term care does not work. Approximately 80% of the deaths due to the pandemic were the result of malnutrition, dehydration, poor care, lack of care, neglect, loneliness, abandonment, and you're very detailed in your questions, Dot. Are meant to protect for them. So many were residents in long-term care facilities owned and operated by Rivera Inc. Many of the people who succumbed to the illness due to these issues that she raises. This campaign is supported by the Ontario Health Coalition, Doctors for Long-Term Care Justice, Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, including Public Service Alliance Canada. So the question to all the candidates, and I will hold the mic and go down the line since you would like a one-word answer from all of you, is, do you support the proposal to transfer the ownership of Rivera Inc.'s long-term care homes into public hands? And I'll start on my left and work my way right. So do you support making that public, Mr. Saray?
We have to have long-term care standards across the country. So it's private and public need to work together to make sure we have it.
Mr. Humphrey?
In order to create a sustainable and humane long-term care strategy, it's essential that the provinces have long-term predictable funding. That's why we've committed to a 6% increase in the Canada Health Transfer if a Conservative government is elected.
Dr. Chenier?
The NDP put forward a bill to remove the profit from healthcare.
Mr. Correll?
Yes, I also support it as well.
Dr. Borelli?
We know that public-private partnerships do not work. That's why we are committed to bringing long-term care in the public umbrella, and we will work with you, your family, and your caregivers to come up with national standards. With that conversation, we know what you need, and we're here for you. Thank you.
Dr. Simon?
I think there may be a jurisdiction issue with provinces versus national, but at the same time, I do think it's important to work with private-public partnerships because the funding and the models are already there, so we need to make what works work.
And Ms. Lapointe?
So report after report clearly shows that it's the lack of standards and the lack of enforcements of what few standards exist. And that's why the Liberal government wants to create national standards to care for seniors in long-term care.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, question 2. I assume you want this to all the candidates as well?
Yes, and just yes or no.
Okay, and if we could just keep, for this question, if we could just keep the single word answer yes or no. I know it's hard for some of you to stay to a single word. Don't know I'd want to be married to any of you. So question 2, do you agree that for-profit ownership of long-term care facilities should be phased out as soon as possible and that all LTCs should be publicly owned and administered? And I will start with Sudbury this time. Yes or no, please?
So in this instance, again, politicians can't answer yes or no. We can't give a yes or no answer. There's jurisdictional rights of provinces and territories. So the federal government would need to negotiate this and have deep discussions with provinces and territories.
Basically, she wants to know if all operated out of the public purse.
I mean, it certainly should be studied, but I can't.
Dr. Burke.
You can call me Nadia.
I could.
Short answer is yes. On the jurisdictional issue, let's grab a coffee and we'll have that discussion on federal-provincial relations and how we go about doing this. It's not much of a jurisdictional issue. Medicaid is a perfect example.
Very succinct.
Yes.
That was even more succinct.
Long-term care is health care. Yes, we support.
I think I'll echo my colleague, Dr. Simonton here when I say that, again, this is a provincial area of jurisdiction and we will work with the provinces to ensure that they have the long-term funding they need to have an effective, humane long-term care system.
Yeah. Again, we have to work with the provinces to establish standards, and so the answer is no.
Thank you, candidates. Okay. Sorry, I haven't had a chance to review these, so I just have to kind of look at them here to try and... Okay. This is for the NDP candidates. How would the NDP finance dental care? And we will start with Dr. Cheney.
The NDP's platform is central. A central part of the NDP's platform is restoring taxation fairness. There is so many that are not paying their fair share. And so the social programs that we are looking to fund through reintroduction of taxation fairness. By taxing the ultra-rich, what we're going to be doing is closing those loops and actually accessing billions of dollars of untapped funding at this point that we can be using to fund our social programs, including dental care.
My father just had to get his teeth redone and it cost him over $30,000. He's on a fixed income. He needed them done. Why? Because he enjoys his steak once a week. He wants to age with dignity. Spoke to a voter. He's living with pain because he can't afford a root canal. We need dental care and we have the plan to fund dental care.
Okay, this one is for the Conservative candidates. As a doctor and an advanced care paramedic, that's obviously both of them, not. How do you reconcile your medical expertise and knowledge of best practices with a party that is not continuing with a plan to end the pandemic? Would you like me to repeat the question? No? You're good? Okay. We will start with Dr. Symington.
I'm not entirely sure the genesis of the question. Certainly our party is doing all we can to support the current government, to support Canadians. We are, our leader is always shouting at the top of his lungs for people to get vaccinated. We are talking about getting vaccinated. There is an issue in forcing people to get vaccinated. I'm a physician. I can't force healthcare on people. I can't hold someone down and jam a needle in their arm when they don't want it. We have put forward our platform and ideas on vaccines, and that includes federal employees either getting vaccinated or subjected to rapid or routine testing. We have the same platform or same position with transportation.
Alors, les anglophones de l'Alliance, excusez-moi, j'aimerais répondre en français. Alors, j'aimerais répéter les commentaires de mon collègue, M. Symington, Dr. Symington ici. Tant que praticien médical, un des plus grands principes d'éthique, c'est qu'on respecte l'autonomie de notre patient. Et je crois que c'est important, quand on parle de terminer la pandémie, qu'on ne crée pas des divisions sociales très toxiques dans notre société. Ouais, moi, je suis vacciné, je supporte la vaccination, mais en fait, je ne supporte pas un gouvernement qui stigmatise une portion de la population. On a des tests rapides qui puissent protéger le public. Et la question, c'est pas pourquoi nous, on ne va pas terminer la pandémie, c'est pourquoi le gouvernement libéral n'a pas agi plus vite pour avoir des vaccins, par pas faire des affaires avec le gouvernement chinois pour notre suppli de vaccins et de ne pas fermer la frontière quand il y a des variants de concern dans la communauté internationale. C'est ça la question, c'est pas nous, on n'était pas dans le gouvernement, nous, on a un plan très bien établi pour se préparer pour des pandémies dans le futur. La question, c'est pourquoi le gouvernement libéral était si lent à répondre à la pandémie, était si mal préparé pour la pandémie quand il est venu. Merci. Absolutely. Again, I just want to emphasize that while I support vaccination and vaccinate myself, I think it's important that we don't give in the temptation to have our wishes and our fears and our desires forced upon people. As much as it is tempting when somebody is intransigent against something that we see as beneficial, we must as a society protect the autonomy of individuals to make their own healthcare choices. And furthermore, the question is not why the Conservative government doesn't have a plan, because we do have a plan in Canada's Economic Recovery Plan, but why the Liberal government was so ill-prepared and so slow to react in terms of closing the border, why they relied on on the Chinese government that showed itself hostile to our interest in obtaining their vaccine supply, and why they were so ill prepared in terms of pandemic stockpiles and rapid response to the evolving pandemic. Thank you so much.
Okay. I've got a question here for Mr. Surrey. Mr. Surrey, how many people like me have received $1,000 in grants that they have not applied for and did not need? How much did that cost Canadians?
You know, a very good question. And when the pandemic hit in March, a year and a half ago, all of the parties in Ottawa, within weeks, provided the support to Canadians. Development programs got together, and yes, there were some challenges with putting a lot of these monies to help people out in a short term. But we needed to make sure that we put these programs out quickly. There are measures in place with Revenue Canada. There are measures in place now with Service Canada. But the employees here worked really, really hard. Our public service staff worked day in, day out, 7 days a week to make. Yes, there's a few individuals, and we are collecting, and there are calls being coming in, but it was very difficult to have one system that applied all across the country. But the key here was getting the money out so people could have dollars in their homes to make sure that they could remain safe, make sure they don't get COVID, they don't fill up the hospitals, they don't fill up the ventilators. So we needed to get that money out quickly, and we'll make no excuses for that. But now there are, you know, elements that we're looking at, trying to fine-tune the systems. But we had to do this quickly to save the health of people and Canadians.
Okay. Another question for the Liberal candidates. The Prime Minister spoke of a 3% tax increase on banks. Will this not accelerate the deficit and increase inflation?
So the Liberal government does have a plan for recovery, and that plan is a three-point plan. One is growth in our industries. Secondly is growth in new technology. And third is population growth. And as I mentioned before, we have a goal for 1 million jobs this year. Part of that is, and certainly an important essential component of that, is childcare, affordable childcare, so that women can participate fully in the workforce. And another component in order for us to be able to drive a lot of these incentives that we want to do is the proposal of taxing the banks. And so it is an important mechanism towards our recovery plan coming out of COVID.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, sure, yeah, if you're a Liberal candidate, I suppose. That's what I'm told anyway.
Thank you, Mark. It's to build upon Vivian's answer. When the pandemic hit and the federal government provided liquidity to the chartered banks, business had $40,000 loans, $20,000 loans to help them through a lot of the costs of COVID. A lot of businesses were frustrated with the charter banks, and we hear this often. There's service fees, charges, we all know, we all pay them. So this is why that, you know, when we looked at FedNor, we provided more dollars to FedNor to help the businesses that fell between the cracks, and we did that in a big way. Yes, there needs to be more accountability to the banks, and there has been frustration, and I know other parties have also indicated the same thing, and that's why we're putting in this 3% tax, and we're going to follow through with the banks, and the banks need to do their fair share too.
I think I'll open this one up for any other candidate who would like to respond to the Liberals. There's a couple of questions here I think we can get a little bit more you know, back and forth on. Does anyone want to respond to either of the Liberals' answers to that question? No? Okay. Dr. Chenier.
Merci.
It's more of a comment. So I find it interesting that now all of a sudden we're going to be taxing banks after having given them $750 billion worth of subsidies during COVID.
Would you like to respond to that, Mr. Saray? Sure.
Sorry.
Just want to make the point, because we've heard this several times about some of the larger businesses receiving the wage subsidies. These wage subsidies did not go to shareholders, did not go to management. They went to the workers to make sure they kept their jobs. So I just want to be clear, the 75%, I hear it all across the riding, employers from small businesses to car dealership, they did not have to make uncomfortable subsidy, which all parties supported in the House of Commons. It's not a non-partisan issue, but it was to support the workers during these difficult times and revenue loss for the businesses.
So part of our recovery plan is to tax the ultra-rich, is to tax those big corporations that made over $78 billion during this pandemic. So my question is simple. I understand the commitment of the Liberals to get us out of this pandemic. The question is who's going to pay for it? They have this 3% tax increase for banks. But why did Trudeau and O'Toole, for that matter, vote against a 1% tax on wealth over $20 million? And why did they refuse to tax companies that profited during the pandemic?
Okay, anyone else want to respond on that? No? Okay. Okay, this is a question that should stimulate a bit of debate, so we're going to let everyone respond, and then if you would like to go back and forth a little bit on this, then we will allow that. The question is on Pharmacare. Pharmacare has been on the political radar for almost 30 years. Successive Liberal governments have made Pharmacare a central campaign promise, but have never delivered upon it. Canada is the only country with a universal healthcare system that doesn't include prescription medication, and we pay some of the highest drug prices in the world, according to the question. So, to the candidates, what will you do if elected to get national Pharmacare across the finish line? And we will start with, I guess we'll start in Sudbury this time, with Dr. Burrell.
So the way Medicare changed the lives of millions of Canadians, a fight for universal public health led by the NDP. Today we want to lead the fight to ensure that all those who require prescription drugs get them by introducing Pharmacare. The difference between the NDP and the Liberals, the NDP and the Conservatives is we all make promises, but the NDP, we deliver. With our plan to tax the ultra-rich, we will again invest in youth. No one should have to choose between their next meal and prescription medicine that they need. So this is our plan to bring forth Pharmacare and truly embrace the idea of a universal Pharmacare. Thank you. Or healthcare.
No, you were right first time, Pharmacare.
Pharmacare is, some people know, some people don't. Everyone under 25 in Ontario has drug coverage. Everyone over 65 has drug coverage. Between 25 and 65, private plans. My concern with the NDP, most economists and budgetary officers suggested not getting into very large, big-scale programs right now because of the massive debt and the deficits we're running. I don't understand how it works, and I don't understand because if my buddy at Valley or Glencore or my buddy who's a teacher has negotiated for 30, 40 years to try to get good drug coverage benefits, is the NDP plan simply going to grab their coverage and disperse it to most people or all people in Canada? I don't know how it works. And the truth is, I personally don't have drug coverage, and I don't know if I think the coverage across the board for a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people. So I just want to be careful we don't put massive amounts of dollars to get substandard health. So for instance, the people who have private payers get less health coverage than what they're having now because they've negotiated for that for years and years and years.
So Canadians have made it very clear that they want Pharmacare, and they want Pharmacare built into the healthcare system. And I will tell you that I agree 100%. The Liberal government has already started work on this, and they've started their negotiations with the big pharma companies. And those negotiations will have led to a reduction in drug costs of $13 billion by 2030. Those negotiations are laying a really good, strong foundation for the continued work ahead in developing a Pharmacare plan for Canada.
So in order to get Pharmacare across the finish line, what we have to understand is we're not going to get there by voting in Conservative or Liberal governments. I'm 24 years old. In the 24 years that I've been alive, the Liberal Party has promised many times that they will enact a Pharmacare or dental care program. I always say in politics, it's the outcome that matters. The incumbent in my riding decided it would be best to vote no on expanding health care to include Pharmacare and dental care. Support Pharmacare and dental care. There are two parties at the table here that are willing to put a serious effort into making sure that happens, and we need to look towards other parties and getting this done.
Out of the G20, there's 19 of them that have universal pharmacare. Only 18 of them also have universal Medicare, but only 18 of them have Pharmacare. So clearly, this is something that can and should be done. It has already demonstrated our willingness to do so. To bring this forward, a bill that the Liberals and the Conservatives voted against. And I don't know what everybody else is hearing at the door, but when I talked to residents, what they do tell me, very real stories about having difficulty making ends meet, and that having to pay that stretches the budget. And those medicines should be available, not using our debit or credit, but in all honesty, should be accessed by using our health cards. And that's the promise that the NDP is putting forth before us. It's not a question of whether we will. We already have put this legislation forward. Really what's lacking is political will to do so.
Hi. As many of you know, we are not in fiscal health in this country right now. And so while I would love to say that we're in a position to commit to all sorts of social spending, this is not the reality we are in right now. We are still in the middle of a fourth wave. An election was called despite overwhelming opposition to the idea, and this indicates that we're still in a state of crisis. Healthcare is something that is managed by the provinces, and it's out of respect for the federal-provincial relations in this country. It's with the provinces that we must work on creating a long-term strategy for federal-provincial partnership to ensure we have a strong and sustainable healthcare system across the country. That's why we have committed, as the Conservative government, to a 6% annual Canada Health Transfer increase should we be elected. This is going to, in a sustainable, predictable way, allow the provinces to decide their own care for an all the moon, as those parties who have never been in power will tell us that they will do. This is simply not realistic in the constitutional structure of this country, and in our current fiscal situation.
Thank you, and obviously Pharmacare is really important for our youth and our seniors and families. And as indicated before, I want to be clear. The Canadian Drug Agency, the very first thing we did is we created this agency. There was thousands of different plans. They were purchasing drugs at different. Now Canada has one purchasing power that Parliament approved. So that getting cost of drugs lowered by having the purchasing power. The second element here, when we talk about a private member's bill that was referred earlier, you can't just snap your fingers and say the federal government will do this, bang, it's done, a two-page bill in the House of Commons. When you look at a private member's bill in the House of Commons, if there's dollars attached to it, it cannot pass. It could pass the House of Commons, but it needs to be part of a budget. So there's really a lot of issues that need to be dealt with. One is getting the provinces together. As indicated before, some 25 and younger, 65 and older, working. You got private plans, you got provincial plans, you got federal. So there's a lot of work, and that work is undertaken. We have a drug agency now that's looking at that, putting all these complex plans together to make sure you get affordable. So that, to be clear, all parties agree that we need to make sure we have this in place, but we need, again, to work, and I'll just leave the last point here. Provincial, federal jurisdiction is real. I've had several conversations with the Minister of Health, Patty Haydu. She works closely with every provincial Minister of Health. I'll give you an example. Federally wanted to send Red Cross workers to long-term care facilities to help them out. And federally, we couldn't do it without the permission of the provinces. So it's false to say that the federal government could just snap their fingers and impose this. We need to work closely with the province, and that's what we're doing. That's it.
Unfortunately, we don't have time to respond. If we didn't get to your question, I apologize, but we do have to get to the closing statements from the candidates. And for this time, we're going to start in Sudbury this time. We opened in Nickel Belt, so we'll end in Sudbury. We'll go in alphabetical order by last name, starting with Vivian Lapointe for the Liberals. 2 minutes.
I want to again thank CARP and Friendly to Seniors for organizing this debate today. Merci également à Mark Gentili pour d'avoir animé la discussion. Je tiens à remercier tout particulièrement tous ceux qui sont venus aujourd'hui. As I said earlier, and it's vital that we be informed in the decisions and choices that lie ahead. It's often said that the true test of a person, and in this case government, lies in how well we fare in difficult times. There can be no argument that the last 18 months have been unprecedented and challenge us on every front, physically, mentally, and financially. This pandemic struck at the very core of our social fabric. Cette pandémie a touché le cœur même de notre tissu social. Through it all, the Liberal government made the health and safety of Canadians, and seniors in particular, their focus. Our government was unwavering in its commitment to keeping us all safe. Seniors were the first priority for vaccines, and we met our vaccine goal 2 months ahead of schedule, making us a world leader. We staved off mass bankruptcies, and now Canada's economy is poised for an economic boom with a target to create 1 million jobs by the end of this year. There is another looming threat to humanity, and that is climate change. The future of our environment is and will continue to be the next big fight on our hands. The Liberals' climate change plan lays proof to our party's determination to tackle this threat head-on. Climate activists agree our plan is the best plan to bring us to climate justice. La Partie libérale est prête à nous faire avancer. As your MP in Ottawa, I will ensure Sudbury's needs are met and heard.
Dr. Simonton for the Conservatives, 2 minutes.
Thank you. just reiterating from the start, our seniors and retired population are very differentiated and vast, and the Conservative comprehensive plan, with the first one to be released, all details, everyone can see what it's all about. We are looking to secure the future. We're looking to secure jobs for the future, 1 million jobs again from our platform. Looking to secure accountability, including cleaning up corruption in Ottawa. We're looking to secure mental health, which includes addictions, opioids, and homelessness, which we have a very good platform on, and I've been vocal on that in the community earlier. We're looking at vaccine supplies and domestic supplies. We're looking for drug supplies, for make sure that we're not caught unaware again if a pandemic or this one continues. And we're looking to secure the economy, which I think is our biggest asset, because right now we're in significant debt, and it's only going to get worse as interest rates rise. My 3 children are not looking like they're in a very good situation here, and this is jumping me up to make sure I get involved, and I'm looking forward to representing you.
Dr. Burley, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you again for the invitation and this invigorating discussion. People in Sudbury deserve better than empty promises. Despite the Liberals' promises for affordable housing, for many the dream of home ownership and the ability to remain in one's home has continued further and further out of reach. The lack of willingness on the part of the Liberal government to take on Big Pharma to reduce soaring prescription drug costs has left Canadians paying the 3rd highest prescription drug costs in the world, closing the door on the ability for many to be able to afford life-saving medication. People are tired of being left behind by this government. New Democrats not only understand this, but time and again we have demonstrated that we are capable of standing up for this community and for all Canadians. We have shown up at the picket lines to support striking steelworkers. We fight for justice while they take residential school survivors to court. Leadership is more than platform and promises. It is action. A leader is more than a figurehead. A leader is someone who is willing to take the time to listen and understand and put in the work needed to turn ideas into action. That is what we look to our MP to do. I am ready to be that leader. Justin Trudeau's Liberals made promises, and rather than working to fulfill them and help Canadians through this pandemic, he chose to turn his back on Canadians and grab power with an unnecessary election. Now it's your turn to make a choice. Do you want to choose a government that chooses power over people, or a government that works for you and stands with you? Sudbury, we're ready for better. We deserve better. A better that I am ready to deliver for you as your next member of Parliament. Together, we can build a better and stronger Northern Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudbury candidates. Moving on to Nickel Belt, again in alphabetical order, and unless I don't know my alphabet, we'll start with Dr. Andréane Chénier from the NDP. 2 minutes.
Thank you again for the invitation to speak with you. It's an honor to stand here, well, sit here, with my colleagues because I'm in good company. We're all here ready to serve. We've heard some really interesting perspectives, but what I've seemed to have heard more than anything is a series of recycled promises from the Liberal Party and from the Conservative government to promise that they would somehow have done better on issues regarding the pandemic. This is interesting because it's a succession of Conservative and Liberal governments that actually made sure that we were not ready to face a predictable threat. In the end, the choice is going to be about priorities. And with New Democrats, our priority is simple. Our priority is you. We're focused on ensuring that residents from Gogama to Killarney, from Sturgeon Falls to the Valley, have what they need, that they have the necessary services to live a healthy and safe life while living in financial security. New Democrats, we leave no one behind. We believe that we're better together. And together, we can make that change. Together, we can build a better future. I'm Andréane Chénier, the NDP candidate for Nickel Belt, and I am ready to lead.
And for the Green Party, Craig Gravel.
I want to thank CARP and Friendly to Seniors again, also everyone watching on Sudbury.com with the live stream and YouTube, I believe. Change is what voters are looking for in this upcoming election. If you're looking to vote for a candidate who supports bold, daring policies like a guaranteed livable income or universal basic income, expanding health care to include pharmacare and dental care, abolishing tuition so that students don't have to have a drag on their future with student debt, and a just transition towards a sustainable green economy. Now is the time to be daring. Now is the time to look elsewhere other than the liberal or conservative parties who have held power in this country ever since the dawn of its existence. My name is Craig Ravel. I and the Green Party of Canada believe that we are the party for this moment, and it's time to be daring. Thank you.
And for the Conservatives, Charles Humphrey, 2 minutes.
You've all had a chance to hear the contrast between myself and my colleague Dr. Simonton and the other three parties here. You have three parties who are big on very nice sounding promises and words and short on plans that will deliver results. I've been working with emergencies for the past 6 years, and let me tell you, words don't matter. It's well-detailed plans and the discipline to execute them with a focus on priorities. We have our priorities with our Secure the Future platform and Canada's Economic Recovery Plan. We have one of the most well-researched, well-planned out platforms of any Canadian party in electoral history. We were the first ones to release it, and we have an excellent endorsement from our Liberal colleagues insofar as they have largely copied our platform with their platform. We promised 1 million jobs, they've promised 1 million jobs. We promised to address mental health and provide a 3-digit suicide hotline. I just heard Justin Trudeau on the radio today making the same promise. So there is no greater flattery than imitation. The Liberals themselves clearly recognize that we are the team with the smarts, the dedication, and the discipline to get this country through one of the greatest challenges we have seen since the Second World War. I am somebody who spent the last 6 years responding to the needs of this community. I have been in your homes, and I have demonstrated time and time again with your families and loved ones that I have the strength, the will, and the intelligence to tackle your greatest challenges. And I ask you today to take the trust that you've placed in me at your time of need and send me to Ottawa to represent your interests as a constituency. Thank you so much.
And finally, for the Liberal Party, Mark Gentili, 2 minutes.
Thank you everyone for attending, and un gros merci à tous les candidats ici qui ont mis leur nom pour l'élection ici. Alors c'est vraiment important. As you can see here, there's a lot of passion and a lot of good commitment from everyone. I really take a lot of pride, and it's really been an honor to represent you, your Member of Parliament, for the last 6 years. I've crisscrossed the riding, 48 communities, 3 First Nations, and my focus has been on you. My focus has been on organizations, on building a better community. The volunteer groups and all, from the quilters and One Up to the New Horizons and Coniston Community Gardens, the Legions, the Therapeutic Pool and the Zilda, Coniston Seniors, all around the riding. We've had several projects, and I've been there for you, I've been there for them. My number one promise is to keep working for you, keep working hard, and my record speaks for itself. I ask you to look at my record, call my office, call my team. We've been there for you. And I hope to earn your trust for a 3rd time to make a difference together. It's important that we work with the municipalities and the province and the federal government together. Please get your vaccines. Please help your neighbors. Please keep our community safe. Merci. Thank you for being here, and I'm really looking forward to representing you for a 3rd time. Merci, thank you, Miigwech.
All right, we want to thank all the candidates for participating in this. The Liberal Party candidates have to shuffle off. Justin Trudeau is in town, so he's doing a press conference in about an hour. If you want to watch what the Prime Minister has to say, you can check that out on Sudbury.com. And just a reminder tonight as well, the Chamber debate, is it Sudbury tonight? Yeah, so tonight you can watch the Chamber of Commerce is having the debate for the riding of Sudbury. You can either watch that on the Chamber website or you can watch it on Sudbury.com. Tomorrow night, September 1st, The Nickel Belt candidates will be doing the same thing. So thank you all for joining us, and I'll turn it over to John.
Well, I must say that in the many years that both and of course, and finally, a great round of applause for our candidates tonight. See you outside.
It's gonna be quick, okay?
Thank you.